As I was saying before, the first thing I do when I do my stories with children is I do the Fatiha. So, brother is going to go to the next slide. Thank you. And I'll just read it with you very quickly. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim. Malik Yawmiddin. Iyaka na'budu wa iyaka nasta'in. Ihdina as-sirata al-mustaqim. Sirata alladhina an'amta alayhim. Ghayra al-maghdubi alayhim wa lad-dallin. So for me, with every student group that I do, I always do the Fatiha because it puts barakah in what we're doing. We give salam as well. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And we put salam on the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his companions. So the next slide. I love writing stories, and these are some of my stories that I wrote. You'll see that it says Cinderella, Snow White, Sleeping Beauty, Beauty and the Beast. So when I was a little girl, I used to go to the library with my parents and I used to read the fairy tales. But I didn't know much about Islam. I was born in England. When I read the story and I get older and I think, oh my goodness, that's not allowed. Like Cinderella, when she goes to the ball, it's actually not allowed to go around dancing in the way that we think about what is appropriate. So I rewrote the stories through an Islamic lens. I changed it. So Cinderella, she does Ramadan, she does Eid, she does Salah, she does everything that a Muslim girl does. Thank you. So this is my favorite book. When I was growing up, nobody ever told me stories about Eid. I knew lots and lots and lots of stories about Christmas, but I never heard a story about Eid. So when I became a teacher, I started writing stories for my students about Eid. So this is 230 pages of stories about Eid. So it's a very large collection. So that's one of my favorite books. My next one is Beauty and the Beast. Now, this is a favorite because usually I write the story by myself, but this one I didn't. This one, my daughter wrote with me, Muslima. So one thing I learned is I don't have to write it by myself. For instance, if you want to write a story and you can say, well, Fawzia, could you help me? Then I will help you. So together we write the stories, but it will be your story. I'm just helping you like an editor. So a little bit about my background. I'm a school cluster librarian. So I managed 8 school libraries. I start up new libraries. So there's 12,000 students in one area and there's about 2,000 in another. So I used to help with that. I'm a children's book publisher. I worked as a principal, a teacher, and a writer as well. So just a little bit of information about myself. So as I go through these slides, I want you to think about one thing. What would you like to write about? So as you go through the pictures, you're going to think, I would like to write a story about this. It doesn't have to be a story. It can be non-fiction. It could be about cooking. It could be about styles of hijab. It could be about paintings. It could be anything. So we're just going to go after one slide. So this is come and see the UAE, but you could say, come and see Malaysia. Do you see how you're making it more towards the culture that you're in? So I was born in England. My home is in America. My husband is American, but I work in the United Arab Emirates near Dubai. That's where I work. Brother, you can just keep going. You can just scroll down. So these will all give you ideas. So I write a lot of Ramadan stories as well. I write about Eid al-Adha and Eid al-Fitr. I write funny stories as well, adventure stories. Isra wal Miraj, about a bully called Tina. You can go faster, brother. Oh, songs as well. If you like to write songs, you can do songs too about the prophets, peace be upon them. So these are some of the stories that I've done. So what kind of book would you like to write? Would it be fiction? Would it be non-fiction? So it's something that you might want to think about while you're listening. Thank you. I also want to tell you about two different types of writers. One is called a plotter, one is called a pantser. So what's the difference? So teachers teach the plotter process. They always start with like a start, a middle, an end, the characters, the setting, the plot, and then the solution. That's usually what your teachers will tell you. And they'll have these different things in there. So a plotter plans a story from start to finish. A plotter makes the characters, creates a story map. They know the beginning, middle, and end, and they plan everything. So if you are a plotter, that means you will know exactly who your characters are. You'll know exactly where it's happening, what's going to be the next thing. All of this will be in your mind. You know everything about your story. A pantser is different. A pantser doesn't plan anything in their story or very little. And the story just takes shape by itself. Like as you're writing or as you're typing, just ideas come and you don't know. You actually don't know the ending. Okay, so that is a pantser. So I didn't know about a pantser. My teacher never taught us about that. And I learned about a pantser just very late in life. So what are you? Are you a plotter or are you a pantser? So I'm going to quickly read you one of the stories that I did with a student. Now, when you write, you don't have to write lots of words. You don't have to. When you look at some of the books here, you'll see just one word. You can do one word, right? You'll see one small sentence. You could do that. So I did this with one of my students. So how do I pick the children? I have librarians with the students, and there are some students who don't be quiet. They just talk, talk, talk. Do you understand? Like the children are never quiet. Well, as we're doing the story, they have so many questions. So I said to my librarians, that's the child that I want to work with because they are articulate. They have the ideas and they will tell me what will happen in their story. Okay, so I'll read this very quickly to you just to give you an idea. Oh, you're going to have to go. Oh, brother, you're going to have to go back. I'm just going to very quickly read it. Sorry. Samir was always sad. He did not have any friends. The other camels did not like Samir. They laughed at Samir. Ha 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 ha. Go away, Samir, they said. Samir felt sad and alone. The camel said bad words to Samir. You're no good. You can't do anything, they said. But no one knew that Samir could run faster than the wind. One day, the camels got ready for a big race. When the camels saw Samir, they made fun of him. Samir tried to ignore them. Ah, it was time for the race. On your marks, get set, bang! Samir ran. Samir ran. Okay, I didn't finish that. Samir ran. He ran as fast as the wind. Subhanallah, Samir won the race. The camels thought Samir was amazing. MashaAllah, they said. From that day on, Samir was always a happy camel. And if you want to do a workbook, you can do that too. So I did this one, put the story in order, and then I did match the sentence, and then I did help Samir find the finish line, and then I did the matching sounds, and that was the end of the story. So it's not a hard story in terms of words. Why is it useful? Because in the classroom, in the school, children might not be nice. So you have to give them something that will teach them to be better. So this is a resource that you could write about bullying, something in Malaysia, something that's relevant to you, and then it becomes a resource for parents and teachers and children. It will make them better human beings, more positive, inshallah. Thank you. So this is Hamid. That's who I wrote the book with. So this is me. I do the typing, and all they have to do is talk. Why do I like that? Because if I tell them to type, the creativity, it goes. Because then they're thinking about the spelling, the full stop, the capital letter. I don't want them to think about anything but the story. Because when you're talking to me, you can just talk, talk, talk. But if I say write it down, you're going to stop, right? So that's why it's important that you do, or the way that I do the story is, if you were going to do it with me, you would just tell it to me and I will do the writing. And then afterwards, I would do the draft and then I would show it to you. So that's one of my other students, the dragon who wanted to read. So what we do afterwards, once I work with the student, then I do a poster and then we invite students to buy the book and then sign the book. So this, if you're the writer, you will sign the book. Now, what does that do for you? Well, number one, you're a writer now. Number two, you're quite famous in the school. This little girl used to get bullied. Her mom cried that day when she was signing. Her mommy was crying and she said, everybody loves my daughter now. And it just was a sad story that, the child was suffering, but by writing, it just was an accident that this came about, but it changed this child's life in a better way, mashallah. This was another story, Who Ate My Pizza. And again, this was with a kindergarten child. So it doesn't matter how young you are, you just have to be able to speak the words. That's all. You just need to be able to tell the story. And this was My Mom's Amazing Hurry. So this story was actually different because my librarians said to me, oh, please, Dr. Fawzi, please come to the library. Mariam wants to talk to you. She has a story. So because the children knew that I was working with them, different ones, to do the story, so now they were trying to find me and say, oh, we got a story. Can you please listen to this? So this one was different because I didn't type it out. I sat with her and I just took down the details that she had. And then afterwards, I wrote it and then I shared it with her. And then afterwards, I get the illustrations and then I put them together with a designer, the book designer, and then it goes to print. And then we will get the ISBN number so that it can officially go on the bookshelf. So these are the books that I've done with children. There's one missing. That's okay. Okay, so one other thing that I'd like to tell you. Thank you. I usually ask children to write the name of a book character. Now, this is Malaysia, but where I work in the United Arab Emirates, when I initially would ask my students to write the name of a book character, they would be characters from North America or England. So it meant that they didn't have enough of their own books from their own country. And that's another reason why you have to write, because there's never enough books. You always want more books. Another activity I used to do was I used to ask my students to draw a house. So because we live in the desert, it means the house has to be like this, okay? Because there's no rain. But guess what? My students used to do a roof with a chimney and smoke. So let me just very quickly tell you, mirror books are books that when you open it, it's like a mirror. You see your family, your community, your clothes, your food, your animals, your buildings, your country, your culture, your beliefs. That's what a mirror book is. Because when you look in the mirror, who do you see? You see you. A mirror book is just about you, something familiar. Teachers love mirror books because they speed language. You can learn any language very quickly if you give children something that they already know. So for instance, if I show you a cat, you'll know because cats are around everywhere. But if I show you maybe a hedgehog, You might not know what a hedgehog is. So that doesn't help. So familiar is better. So for my students, these would be examples of mirror books because it's the desert, it's a camel, it's Dubai, it's the clothes that their parents wear. So these are what we call mirror books. Thank you. Window books are also very important because as Muslims, we love Allah's world and everybody is different, but we accept because books that are not from Malaysia. So a very quick check. Let me see if you know what a mirror book is and a window book is. So for Middle Eastern Emirati children from Dubai, is B a mirror book or a window book for Arab children? What do you say? B is a mirror book or a window book for Arab children? Right, it's a window book because it's a different culture. Thank you. So these are my students more than 10 years ago. I want you to look at the color of their hair. Do you see? It's black. Beautiful ebony hair. So I asked them to draw a picture of themselves because we were doing sentences. So they drew pictures and then the next day I put them up. But you'll notice that the hair, I asked them to draw themselves, not anyone else. And you'll notice that they were brown, yellow, orange, but there were no black. There were no girls who drew their black hair. So I said to them the next day, I love your drawings. They're beautiful. Could have said, oh, teacher, that's me. I colored my hair because we color hair, right? That's something that we do. We put henna or we put different color, but they didn't say that. They said we're doing a different type of girl. So that to me was very interesting. Why would they say that? What are they looking at that makes them draw that, but not themselves? What would you say? The books, the images, the movies? Yeah, because they're not seeing people like themselves. So there are not enough books that are reflecting their culture. It's very important for identity, positive identity, to love who you are, to love your culture. If it's not in the books, it's not being reinforced. So this is when I used to ask them to draw a house. Do you see how they draw the chimney and the apple tree? It should be date trees. We have date trees. We don't have apple trees in the desert. So this house here, this is the house that I was born in England. I wasn't born in the hospital. Do you see it has a chimney and it has a roof? At the back, it actually does have an apple tree. So that's the house that I was born in. And that's the house what my students are drawing. But it's not authentic. It's not the house that represents them. They're drawing a house that represents me from my childhood. So there's some more pictures like that. So what I do is I take them outside and I say, can you tell me the shape of the building? They say square, rectangle, oblong, which is correct. So then I bring them back because they've drawn the pictures. And then I say to them, what pictures did you draw? Like, why did you put the roof? Now, the children are silent because they're thinking. And then they say, oh, it's because we see this in the book. It means we're not drawing and we're not producing enough books that reflect the children, not enough mirror books. And that's why it's important that you do that. I don't think you're going to be able to hear this, but if I play the first audio to the students, I will say, Assalamu alaikum. They're all Muslim. Like in Malaysia, we have mixed, mashallah. In Dubai, in Abu Dhabi, we have mixed, but in our schools, we have only Muslim children. So when we say Assalamu alaikum, the children, some of them say, good morning. Then I'll say, Assalamu alaikum. they will say, good morning. I'll say it again. Then their teacher will understand and encourage them to say, wa alaykum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Now, the first picture that you saw, the children always said, wa alaykum assalam. So that is an example of cultural erosion. If you don't give salam, because remember, when we do this, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, these are the malaika, we greet them. Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, salam. If you read the Quran, the greeting is salam. The greeting of Jannah is salam. But our children are not saying salam. Why? Because it's not reinforced in the books. They're not getting mirror books. It's not normalized. This is another picture. Babe, can you just go back one? Thank you. In the malls, we see pictures like this. So that means that's the normal dress. That is what everybody should be wearing. But what if we changed it? What if you became the people who make the advertisements? What if you were the photographer and you added, do you see the children's clothing on the end? What if everybody dressed like that? Because they're still beautiful, right? They're still beautiful, but they're not being represented. Why? It's a question that we have to ask. We have to be the ones who produce that because it reflects us. So I was in a bank and I saw this image and I said to the bank manager, why is the little girl dressed like that? Because that's not the way Emirati children dress. And so he said, I will talk to marketing. So then I saw this picture. The next one, dear. Now, do you see the grandmother and the grandfather? And you see the little girl? That is a correct display of the family. That one is correct. But whoever did this picture didn't do that one. So this is another thing for you to pay attention to and be able to create something that gives the proper or the correct reflection. Okay, I'd like you to take a look at this. It's actually made for grade, like kindergarten, grade 1, 2, 3, for young children. It's called Celebration Days, Holidays Around the World. You'll see Christmas, Halloween, Hanukkah, Holly. You'll even see lettuce. There's something missing. What's missing? Eid is missing. Ramadan is missing. But you'll see lettuce is there. Apples are there. They put in sweets. But the second largest celebration that is celebrated by 2 billion people across the world, it's not in there. What does that mean? So we call that cultural erosion. It's absent. There's no reason for it to be absent. $80 million in additional funding for libraries, not for high school, not for university, not for college, but for little children. 80 million. The Canadians spent that on books. They got the authors, they got the illustrators, they got the designers, they got everyone to make the books. Why? Because they wanted Canadian books, Canadian stories, Canadian setting that celebrate Canadian values. When I saw that, I thought, wow, you could have Muslim or Islamic books with Islamic stories, Islamic setting is anything, but let's say Malaysian books, Malaysian setting, Malaysian values. Okay, do you see how it transfers? The Canadians are doing it because they didn't want American books. They didn't want British books. They wanted Canadian books. Why? Because it's identity. If you want to be a Malaysian, if you want your child to be a Malaysian, if you want your child to be a Canadian, you have to give them the books. Well, nobody else is going to write them. That's why you have to write them. So that's the influence. The Canadians didn't like the influence because No book is innocent. Every book has an agenda. And so if you want to promote certain values for your society, they have to be in there. So this program that I'm suggesting to you, where we create books with children or with you, it's a successful program. Why? Because you're going to make the book that you like. You will do art, or you will do about sports or cooking or fashion or science or technology, fiction or non-fiction. You write about what you like. So, of course, you like something, and so you'll write about that. It could be something as, I don't know, a fruit that is Malaysian. It could be about your leader. It could be about this book fair. Anything that you experience. Okay, so like scarves, you're all wearing different colored scarves, and you've got different hairstyles. So you can write about that. You can write anything that you feel would help other children. Okay, that actually is the end of the session. Thank you very much. Jazakallah khair. So right now, what you get to do is ask me questions about anything that you have you'd like a response to. So thank you, Juliana. Juliana is from the public library here. So the question is, what about illustrators? So the problem is that we always talk about writers, writers, writers. Teachers talk about writing, writing, writing. I've never heard a teacher talk about pictures. I've never heard it. But it's so important because the images, writing, you have to pick up and you actually have to look through it. But with a picture, it hits you straight away, right? What's more important? Well, both are important, but the image is what will make you copy. You will imitate. As an example, 5 years ago, 4 years ago, I never ever saw tattoos. I never saw tattoos. But now I see tattoos everywhere. How? Because images are everywhere and people want to copy and they just want to say, oh, I have to have that. But what if you gave them the opposite of that? So illustrators are extremely important and they are out there. And I think this is actually a very good platform for us, Juliana, to sort of put that call out for illustrators to say that, you know what, we can match you up with a writer. We really value the skill that you have. So that's definitely something that we need to focus on as well. Thank you. That was a great question. Anybody else? So even if you don't feel like you don't want to write or you don't want to illustrate, you will have family members, your grandparents, your aunts or uncles, your nephews, your brothers or your sisters. Pay attention. You'll see that some of them have a talent. So one of the books that I did, I had a publisher say, yes, we will accept your story, but we don't have an illustrator. So I was sitting in the house and I was talking to my husband and I said, oh, well, this is such a shame because I can't publish this. I don't have an illustrator. So my daughter, who was, I think, about 9, she said, oh, Mummy, don't worry. I will draw your pictures for you. I said, oh, that's very nice. I said that as a mom, that I wasn't going to take her pictures, but she did them. She did the pictures. And then I looked at them and I thought, wow, I didn't know you could draw. So I sent her pictures to the publisher, and guess what? They accepted them. So that's amazing that even as a mom, I don't know what my child can do. So you have the same thing. Whether children can knit something, make something with their hands, everyone has a talent. So that's something else. I think if you try and look for that and give them a platform where they can have that, like you might even want to do a talent show, Juliana, where people have different crafts. I think they do them here as well. It just gives a little bit of spotlight on things that children can do. And not just children, anyone at any age, inshallah. Any other questions? Okay, if you don't have any other questions, you might want to write down my email. I hope you can write my email, and then it might not be today, it might not be tomorrow, it might not be next year, but maybe you might find someone who likes to draw or likes to do something or likes to write, and they would like to write a book. And maybe their book next year might be on these shelves that we're walking down the aisles of. That would be absolutely wonderful. I want to, inshallah, I want to thank you all very, very much for listening. And if you're not comfortable to ask a question now, as I'm walking around, please do stop me and I will answer your question, inshallah. Thank you so much. Jazakallah khair.